I'm sending my Aunt Tina money directly to her bank account in the Philippines with Western Union.
I-16.
She's the self-proclaimed bingo queen of Manila, and I know better to interrupt her on bingo night, even to pick up cash.
N31.
Sending money direct to her bank account is super fast, and Aunt Tina gets more time to
Bingo!
be the bingo queen. Western Union. Send money in-store directly to their bank accounts in the Philippines. Services offered by Western Union Financial Services, Inc., NMLS number 906983, or Western Union International Services, LLC, NMLS number 906985. Licensed as money transmitters by the New York State Department of Financial Services. See terms for details.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Welcome to Heritage Voices, episode 90. I'm Jessica Yaquinto, and I'm your host. And today we are talking about the Tohono O'odham Nation and Kitt Peak National Observatory, building relationships and creating resources. Before we begin, I'd like to honor and acknowledge that the lands I'm recording on today are part of the Nooch or Ute Peoples Treaty Lands, the Dinétah, and the ancestral Puebloan homeland. Today we have Dr. Jacelle Ramon-Sauberan on the show, and she is going to introduce herself.
Skugtash, Wissa Jamoy, Anyap Jugi, Dr. Jacelle Ramon-Sauberan, Chapwalk Amachid. Good day to you all. My name is Dr. Jacelle Ramon-Sauberan, and I come from the San Xavier community on the Tohono O'odham Nation. I currently am the Tohono O'odham Nation Education Development Liaison for NUOR Lab that oversees Kitt Peak National Observatory that sits within my reservation. And I also am an adjunct instructor at Tohono O'odham Community College, teaching within the Tohono O'odham Studies program. And I also sit on a couple different boards. I am a current board member for Friends of Tucson's Birthplace that oversees Mission Garden in Tucson. And I recently joined the Friends of Saguaro National Park, which is near and dear to my heart. And, pretty much grew up in Saguaro National Park, Tucson Mountain District, which is on the west end of Tucson, and was really my playground and, just my backyard. And so really excited to be serving on those boards. And I'm also part of Arizona Humanities Speaker Series. So I travel around Arizona and give presentations about Tohono O'odham history and culture, or I do a presentation on my dissertation research, which is on the history of land and water in my community, San Xavier. And I'm excited to be here with you all.
Yeah, so excited to have you. I also grew up in Tucson, and so this is very exciting to get to talk about a place that's also near and dear to my heart. So that's fun. So growing up in Tucson, in San Xavier, near Tucson, what got you interested in this type of work? How did you get into this field?
So that's a good question. Both my parents are retired K through 12 teachers, and my mom taught out on the main part of our reservation in Sells, which is our capital, for many, many years. And I would drive with her. My babysitter was in Sells, and then, I went to elementary school where she taught second grade for, many, many years. And so my brother and sister did the same, and, we'd travel with her. And if you don't know where the main part of the Tohono O'odham Nation is, it's about 60 miles west of Tucson, one way. So
I was going to say that's a commute every day.
Yes, it is. And so, again, me, my brother, and my sister, they're both older than me, but, we would travel with her. And so I have these fond memories of traveling back and forth on Ajo Way, which turns into Highway 86. And I, passed Kitt Peak National Observatory on a daily basis. And, when I was young, we'd take field trips up there. And so, it was very much part of growing up. And, as I got older, there was always times when I would be drawn back to it for different reasons. And that really happened in 2010. And I was a freelance journalist at the time. My undergrad's in journalism. And I was working for Indian Country Today Media Network. And this is when they were actually in New York. Now they're in Phoenix. And so, but at that time, I would freelance and I would write all sorts of different really awesome articles about, my tribe. And then I'd get assigned, other stories and get to talk to people from all over, the US and even in Canada. And so it was really awesome experience being a freelancer for them.
Can you tell us about like a couple of your favorite stories working for them?
Sure. So I really always like to do feature stories and do profiles. And so a big goal of mine when I was a journalist and, a young journalist was I really wanted people to understand that within Indian country, there's the trauma, there's, bad things that happen, but there's also good, because at the time growing up, all I ever saw was these bad and negative stories coming out of Indian country, where it was controversial or, and so I really wanted to change that narrative and really be able to say, hey, you know what, there is good out there and there's people doing amazing things from Indian country. And so I helped with profile pieces. And so, those are really my favorite. And again, meeting people doing all these amazing things from, this one young individual, he was First Nations from Canada, and he was, up and coming rapper, and just like his story of like what he had gone through, that's what really just to me is hearing all different walks of lives. And so he, was telling his story and found, healing through music. And that was really something that he liked. And then others, were just their academic careers and, becoming lawyers. And then another, she was up and coming fashion designer, like, again, just amazing stories and what all of these different people were doing. And, and it always tied back, every person I talked to tied back to their culture, their traditions. And, and I always really connected with that. And so those are some of those stories. And so I was freelancing, but also too, I had journalism internships. And so I had this one internship in, I think it was my last year of my degree, my undergrad degree. And I was assigned to work with the newspapers that were south of Tucson. So that would include like Sahuarita, Green Valley,
Rio Rico.
Yeah, Sierra Vista, like all those areas. And they're all kind of networked under, one news publication. And the editor I worked with, he was really awesome. And he was just, wanting me to really push myself in terms of, that's great, doing features, but then also to like, what are other stories that you've been wanting to tell that you haven't? Like, he was just like giving me this opportunity. And I was like, cool. And I was like really into it, and I was, because I had always had a list of stories, or topics that you wanted to touch on. And one of them, was Kitt Peak and wanting to talk about the history. And that actually came up when, doing a story for Indian country today. And, so it was just something that sparked an interest. And so it made it onto this list of like, hey, that's a future story. And then I was finally able to do that with this internship I had. And I always had been curious because I didn't know what the story was. I didn't know the history of how, this observatory became, part of the main part of the Tohono O'odham Nation. Because we have 4 parcels that make up our 2.8 million acres, but they're not connected. And the 4 parcels were all designated by executive order at different times. And so, again, always piquing my curiosity and whenever I drive by. And so I had this opportunity to write a story. And I started reaching out and figuring out, well, who could I talk to? Who would have this knowledge? And, it led me to talking to one of my mentors and the person who actually, helped me get the job that I have today with Kitt Peak. Her name's Katie Garmany. And, she told me, she said, well, this is what I know, and, shared documents and everything else. That really started our friendship and, me looking up to her as a mentor over the years. And so, again, it was really like a starting point, right? And then being able to read through what she shared, what she knows, and then her suggesting, oh, reach out to this person and this person. And so I wrote this story and it made it into Indian Country Today, and then also the newspaper publications for those small communities that are south of Tucson. And it actually was a really good story. And, I wish I had more time with it, but again, it was kind of like a starting point. And that's where I still share that article, even though it's 14 years old now. But again, it opened my eyes to learning about the history, but also continuing to learn about it. And so today, in the job that I have as a liaison and being a bridge person between Kitt Peak National Observatory and the Tohono O'odham Nation, I'm now expanding on that. And I'm starting to reach out to, more of our tribal members to ask, what do you know? What stories do you remember? Or what was passed down to you? And so hoping to start being able to sit down with some of those individuals. I've had others reach out too and talk to me and say, hey, you know what, somebody that would be really great for you to talk to, I'm going to connect you, and so again, just more preliminary, but it's exciting though, because of that, it really started things. And then 4 years ago, when I was still a PhD student, Katie reached out and said, hey, I have an idea, I kind of want to run it by you. Let's meet for lunch. And so we did. And she asked if I'd be interested in a summer internship. And she was really looking for a tribal member to help be able to be a resource, but also give cultural competency presentations to staff and, anybody who's visiting Kitt Peak, because there's always astronomers and scientists that come and visit and, do research up on the mountain. And so I said, sure. And so then that's where I picked up again of okay, I wrote this article, so many years ago. And then how can I update it? What else has happened over time, in terms of resources I have. And so I was starting to build a presentation, and I did do a number of presentations, and that was kind of the start of everything. And then that internship then turned into a part-time job, and then finally leading into becoming a full-time job, which was last December. I literally finished teaching classes, had a weekend off, and I started my new position with Kitt Peak.
God.
Yeah. But it was around the holidays, so it was super chill, easy, really flexible time. And I really just, did things with HR and, those types of when you first start a job. And
right.
So it wasn't I hit the ground running and had some major project. But yeah, and so it's really exciting because my position is the first of its kind. Mm-hmm. And, I really saw a need, and that's why I reached out to a few people that I worked really closely with. And I said, what did you think about me coming on full time, or me proposing that at least? And everyone was like, yeah, do it. And so I said, okay. And, and other people had kind of hinted to me too of it'd be great if you were here full time. And, and so through all of those conversations, and also, I think also too, through my spirituality and how I was raised and how I grew up, there's things that you don't ignore, and I really felt a draw and a pull and a need, for me to step into the role that I'm in now. And so, I feel there's a lot of great work that we've done, going from me being an internship to part-time to now. And then there's still so much more that, lies ahead, but moving in a right direction. And I also been getting really good feedback from, O'odham, that whether I know or I just met, and given a presentation to, and they're really happy to see me in this role and to know that there is an O'odham serving in this capacity. So it makes me feel really good, that I am where I am. But it also came with stepping down from my faculty position that I had at the O'odham Community College, and that was hard, but I totally haven't walked away from teaching. So that's why I'm just now an adjunct instructor, and I'm still teaching. Now I'm teaching one class a semester, but when I stepped down, there wasn't anybody to replace me. So I continued to still teach multiple courses. But, it's in my blood, as I mentioned, both my parents being teachers. I, grew up in the classroom, and, I was there before school started, during school, after school, so, and then I would also help my parents when I was old enough, and I'd set up their classrooms for them. And, so again, that's what I mean by growing up in the classroom. And so when my mom retired, I felt the need to step in and continue what she had passed on to me and, many of our generations before us in my family. And, not to say that I wouldn't have otherwise, but I just really felt like, being in an educator role was the right choice at that time. And so that's what I did. And I went back to school, got my master's and then my PhD. But during my PhD, pandemic happened. I also had a child, and
that's a lot.
And, of course, all of it, my daughter, not planned at all, but then also to the pandemic, and, it was crazy. It was a crazy.
And a PhD. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but during my time, it was hard to do my research. So then I looked into then getting a job until I could do my research, because when the pandemic hit, of course there was, City of Tucson ordinances in place, but also too, my tribe had their own as well. Yep. And so for my tribe, those ordinances actually, I felt were in place longer, and so that delayed things for me even more. And so I said, well, you know what, in the meantime, why don't I just start teaching? And, I kind of did things a little bit backwards, but hey, that's okay. And so, that I did that, and I started teaching, and, definitely it was hard juggling, having a young one and teaching full time and still trying to work on my dissertation. And actually my last semester, I was teaching 5 classes, and I wrote my dissertation and graduated. I don't know how,
wow.
to be honest, but I did, and I did it. And so, and I still have those moments of like realization of like, wow, like, because I've been in school for so long. That I'm like, I'm done, like, and I'm a doctor of philosophy now. Like, that's again, just really hard, because I grew up very humble, and, and so, to have those moments and just everything, that I went through, because I went through my master's into my PhD. So there was no break. And so it was 9 years altogether. And so again, it's just like those times where I don't know, it's just, I surprise myself, and, I don't know. Sometimes I'm speechless about it, but, I am proud to say that I'm a 3-time graduate of the University of Arizona. I'm a second in Wildcat, and the first in my family to earn a PhD.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. So I, getting into that of, saying that more and more, whereas before it was just, I don't know, like I never thought there was going to be light at the end of the tunnel, and it was just like still trying to hang in there and, push forward. But then it was like getting pulled away because being faculty, and being, trying to fulfill all the responsibilities and duties I had. But I'm like, I still got to finish. And so, it was just back and forth. But I mean, it's awesome, everything that I've accomplished and been able to do. And, now again, like those times of moments where I just am driving in the car and like, thinking about things. And I'm like, yeah, like that happened and I did that. And, here we are. And yeah. So again, it's still also getting used to even being called doctor and utilizing that. And sometimes, I forget and I come back to it. But again, it's great to be, where I am. I'm happy where I'm at, and, really wanting to, be a role model and to make my family proud and, be me and, and push myself, because I always love to be challenged and, take on, different projects and be involved in so much. And a lot of people are like, wow, you do a lot, but I'm like, I love it though. Like, that's me, in a nutshell, of like being here, there, everywhere. But I also know when it's time to be like, okay, I need the weekend, or
it's too much.
Yeah, or I'm gonna go to Flagstaff and go camping with my family. So I know those moments. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially how I got into this position. But again, it's a lot of it's also just being in tune. And as O'odham, we're in tune with, our environment, our juwadaga, as we say, our land, and that incorporates, the weather, the seasons, the plants, the animals, ourselves, those that we love, that part of our family and friends circles. And, it's just like all of that really is interwoven and intertwined together. And so, again, just going where I feel, there's a need and where I can definitely help out. Because I've always wanted to be a resource for people and always wanting to help in any way that I can. And if I can't, then I'll find somebody who can, so that's, again, just how I was raised, and, continuing to, practice those things, and, and like I said, be a role model and teach those to my daughter, Lydia. She's 5.5 and she's starting kindergarten this week, which is exciting. Yeah, I know, it's a big milestone. I can't believe it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then also to my sister, between her and her husband, they have 7 kids. And so, again, also being there for them, and, and all the other youth that I talk to. And so I'm going to stop there because I feel like I could just keep going on and on.
No, that's perfect.
I know we have several questions, so I might have actually answered a few of those.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, we're already at our first break point, but I'm excited when we come back to hear more about your work at Kitt Peak and some of these other topics as well. So we'll be right back.
People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Terms and conditions apply.
O'Reilly. You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Okay, so coming back from our break, could you tell us a little bit more about your current work at Kitt Peak? What does that look like on a daily basis?
Sure. So within my position as a liaison, I do several different things. I lead tours up at the observatory with Tohono O'odham Nation groups. So whether it's from a program or a department, on the reservation, or even like this summer, we had a lot of different summer programs come up from the Tohono O'odham Nation. And we also had a couple come from the Pasquayaki tribe, which is a neighboring tribe. And so leading those tours are a lot of fun. Also too, having a chance to be able to, we have our engagement team. And so working with them and, wanting to engage with K through 12 school districts and talking about how we could do that, and definitely, a big part of what I'm doing and what I, especially in the last 4 years is helping reestablish relationships and communication, because, it's no fault by either entity, meaning the Tohono O'odham Nation or with Kitt Peak, where, there were relationships established, good communication between folks. But, people retire, people step into other positions. And so, the relationships leave with these people. And, maybe, there's somebody that comes in that they're able to say, hey, this is my point of contact, but not always, And so I always wanted to make sure, again, being a resource person and helping out. And so, for myself, I noticed, I'm like, what? I don't know what goes on at the observatory. And I wonder how many other Tohono O'odham, are wondering the same thing. And so, I started talking to folks, at the observatory and, trying to get an understanding. And a lot of it was, because, yes, of course, people switching and positions or leaving, retiring, but also too because of the pandemic. And then also too, we had a fire, the Contreras fire in 2022. It was in the summertime. So having all this shutdown, of the observatory, and with that, people not knowing, well, where do I get updates? Or, and people meaning whether it's from the Tohono O'odham Nation, or public. And so, reaching out and to tell people like, yeah, you can get fire updates here, or, this is where I'm the person to contact now, for special tours if you're from the Tohono O'odham Nation. So again, putting that out there and being able to do that. And we also created a newsletter that we have shared with tribal members and hoping to do that. I don't know. We haven't really decided, but, I was saying at least maybe 2 or 3 times a year to share updates, because not everywhere on the Tohono O'odham Nation is there internet access. Mm-hmm. So being able to create a newsletter that can be electronic or print, and being able to share that out on, especially the main part of my reservation, is important. And so, and then also too, we had a really big event in May, and it was the Tohono O'odham Nation Open Night. So it was an evening for just tribal members to come up and participate in all sorts of different really fun activities, visiting different telescopes, being able to look through portable telescopes once the sun went down. We had a kids zone. You could go into the visitor center and visit. We have different displays up in there. We have a gift shop in there. So it was really a chance to then, allow everybody to come up and be like, we're open again, this is who's in this position, and all of this. And so, again, helping with that communication and rebuilding. And, another part too is really being able to find a balance. So like within my Himatug, which translates to way of life, we really, are big on having a balance, of all, different parts of your life, and you need to be in balance with all these things. And as I mentioned, so much is interwoven and intertwined. And so carrying that with me and being a liaison and looking at the observatory and saying, this resides within the Tohono O'odham Nation, specifically the Shuktuak district. And it, the observatory is on top of one of our sacred mountains. The Quinlan Mountains in O'odham, we call it Iogam Duag, which translates to Manzanita Shrub Mountain. It also has a nickname of Itoi's Garden, and Itoi is our creator. So there's a lot of sacred knowledge and history on the mountain where the observatory is. So really trying to find this really good balance of, sharing about our Himathug, which, I feel like a lot of times, that's where you need to start, whether it's like with a tour or, any information you provide, and really having people understand place and where they're at, because we get visitors at the observatory from all over, from not only, within the country, but outside the country too. And so, again, having that, but of course we are at an observatory, so sharing astronomy and science and, just the amazing research being done, and again, having this really good balance of the two. And so I've been really trying to do that and help, because I'm up there leading tours, but also too, we have docents and tour guides. And so just making sure like everybody's on the same page as well. And so again, doing all sorts of really awesome things. And the tours are my favorite because I just get, to engage with, my people, and, especially when the youth come up and, just talking with them. And we had youth workers that came up. So within my tribe in the summertime, our districts, they hire youth workers, to come in and learn about, maybe it is something that is of interest to them, but also to saying, well, there's these other jobs, and just, again, giving them that opportunity to work and earn some money, but also to share with them, these are different fields, these are different, what this job entails versus this job, to get them thinking about their futures. And so they came up to the observatory. And so I designed that tour a little differently, because thinking about, their age and what they were doing. And so having them learn from different folks that work up on the mountain, and telling them, yes, we have our astronomers and scientists up here, but, it takes so much more, to run an observatory. You need somebody to feed everybody, you need somebody to manage this. You need somebody, to fix this. And so just, giving them that exposure of these different jobs and these different people. And it's really neat too, because a lot of the people that talked and shared when they came up, they've been in these positions for, quite some time. And, so again, it was really neat to give them, that exposure of these different jobs, but also to, we got to visit a couple of the telescopes, and, they had lunch up there with us. And so, and I'm always happy to talk about my educational journey, and, again, just be able to like be in this space with them and share. So again, that's like the fun part of my job that I really, really, really enjoy. And not to say I don't like the other parts of it too, but just being able to be up on the mountain. And, it's always funny too, because people are like, wow, you drive up there every day. And I'm like, well, no, actually, I'm only up there when there's tours or when I'm needed, but through June, I was up there, I felt like almost every day because of the different tours I was leading. But on a normal week, I should say that, I might be up there maybe once out of the week. And then otherwise, I'm working between my home office, and we have a headquarters that's on the University of Arizona campus. And so again, just kind of splitting my time between all the different places. But, when I'm up there, it is something special. And, I feel very honored, to be able to be in my position and be able to lead the different tours and, again, be that person of contact. And, we also too had a really great tour yesterday up on the mountain with one of the communities that's, right at the base of the mountain. And so, again, it was great to engage with them and talk to them and, hear, their questions and concerns, and letting them know that I'm there, and so I think that's like the biggest thing. Even though we've always had tribal members working at the observatory, but, being in a liaison position, I think is a really big step, and a big step though in the right direction, and goals and plans that we have.
So if thinking about your work at Kitt Peak and like where you would like to go with that work, is there something that you hope like by the end of your time there that like this, I will have done this, or people will know this, or, is there some sort of like larger goal that you have in mind that you're hoping for?
That's a good question. I mean, I haven't, really thought about that, to be honest, but I think the biggest thing though is just, the communication and the relationship, because, the lease was signed in 1958 between what is now the observatory, and the Tohono O'odham Nation, which at the time we were called Papago, and more specifically the Shuktuak District, which is where the Quinlan Mountains and observatories within those boundaries. So if you're not familiar with the Tohono O'odham Nation, if you looked at my tribe as its own country in comparison to the United States, within the United States, we have all of our different states, or 52 states. Within the Tohono O'odham Nation, our equivalent is our districts, and we have 11 districts. And then within those districts, we have communities and villages, which are similar to cities and towns. And of course, it has to do with population. And so that's how ours is too, where you could have a village where there could be, 5 families, or you can have a community of 2,000, because we have in total 36,000 tribal members. And so within our districts, there's a chairperson and a vice chairperson, and you have a district council. And so own governing body for each of these different districts, just like how our states do, and more specifically, even thinking about, like City of Tucson Council, having a mayor, different things like that, that all kind of falls in line. But we do also have our 3 branches of government. So we have executive, legislative, and judicial. So our chairman that oversees the whole Tohono O'odham Nation is the equivalent of the president of the United States. And so that's how we're structured governmentally. And so for the observatory, the first people, that we go to for, any updates and, sharing or any permission is with the Shuktuak District. And so, but again, when that lease was signed in 1958, it took some time for those tribal leadership to have a really good understanding of what an observatory was going to be, what telescopes did, who astronomers were, and so it took quite some time, to have those discussions, because also too, you had tribal members, this is, in the 50s, that didn't speak English. So you had to have translators too, to help with those conversations. But then also too, there had to be this long-standing agreement of, yes, we're going to lease this to you, but you need to uphold, some of those things included providing job opportunities for tribal members, being able to have tribal members sell their arts and crafts in the visitor center, being able to provide educational opportunities, not only for the public, but tribal members as well. So, and there's more in there. But again, it was beyond just being, okay, we're going to lease this land to you. It was like, there's these certain things that, we want you to uphold that will benefit and help us as O'odham. And so, I just want to help with that, to continue that. And, again, having really good communication and having good relationships is a big part of that. And, stepping into this role and being able to help with that, I hope that in the future, there can be more tribal members in my role, or like we could have our own, like little team. And then that way, when it's time to, leave or retire, then I know that'll be in good hands, where there'll be somebody continuing this work, Mm-hmm. But I think also too, this is more local, but I do a lot too national with colleagues in Hawaii. And we've been working together to really be able to help the astronomy community learn how they can engage with Native and Indigenous tribes groups closest to them, and they have a report. It's the decadal report, and a big part of that was saying, as astronomers, as scientists, and you think about what sort of relationship, if you have a relationship, or how you can start one and be a good neighbor to, again, the Native Indigenous peoples closest to where you're working, and so I think a lot of folks, again, didn't, they saw that, but they didn't know where to start. And so between myself and my colleagues in Hawaii, we've been going to conferences to help give, folks tools to use, and, and providing information to them of, where to start and how to do that. And so that just goes back to me and wanting to be a resource. But, I really, I feel like there's good things happening now, and and it's really great to meet all different folks. And then even after our conferences, for people to reach out and be like, it was really great meeting you, I have questions, can we talk? And so, again, those are just different things that I've been doing. And I just want everybody to just be happy and be really engaged with each other, and collaborating and having partnerships, and everything in between there. And that's, I think, for me, that's really a big goal of mine. And over the years and all the different things I've been doing, I've been able to build my network of go-to people. And so, like, for when we had the Tohono O'odham Nation open night, I said, well, I know, so-and-so, and I know somebody here and here. And I'm like, I'm going to pull them in. And so it was really great because we had Saguaro National Park, we had Pima County Public Library, we had Tucson Children's Museum, and they were there to support, and also Arizona Humanities. A couple of really great people I worked with drove from Phoenix to come to that event, and have an info booth, and just make it a really fun night. And so again, I realizing, I'm like, I'm like, I know people, I have friends and, connections in all these different places, and, others really wanting to, they didn't know how to engage with Kitt Peak, but always wanted to, right? And so a couple of those organizations are like, yeah, that'd be awesome. We're trying to reach tribal members, and I've never been to Kitt Peak. So, let's, we'll come out, let's do this. And so that's been really great. But I think that's another part to it too, is like building partnerships. So, like, in a nutshell, I just, would big goals is, making sure that our communication is good, people are happy, and we have these really great collaborations and partners, in everything that we're doing, and, really being able to provide, like I said, with what's in the lease to tribal members, and, always keep upholding and keeping, what the observatory said it was going to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's so cool that you're going to, astronomy conferences and things like that, and, hopefully trying to avoid like Mauna Kea type situations. So that's awesome. Yeah. Cool. Well, it goes so fast, already at our second break point. But when we come back, I would love to hear some more about your dissertation. So we will be right back.
People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay. So, as promised before the break, I'm really curious to hear more about your dissertation work. Obviously, growing up in Tucson, land and water is a big topic. So definitely really curious to hear what got you into that topic, what you found, some major takeaways, things like that about your dissertation.
Yeah. So when I decided to go back to school, so I graduated my undergrad, and then I was like, I'm just going to get out of Tucson. I want to travel, and I did. I studied abroad in Italy. It was amazing. I spent a whole summer there. And then I was living in Seattle, Washington. I had a journalism internship there. And then I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I was working there for the Osage Nation and their tribal newspaper. And
awesome.
so I got to explore, and I have, friends I still keep in touch that, live in Seattle and Oklahoma. And so when I was starting to think about, next steps, I'm always, thinking my future and, all that great stuff. And my dad had encouraged me to go back to school. And, I kept thinking about it. Yeah. And then finally I was like, all right, I miss home, and packed up, left my job, and applied at the University of Arizona. And so I started with my master's, and I have always loved history. And I always made a point to do research on just things I was curious about when it came to my culture and, just things I wondered about. So I always, my topics always definitely related back to my tribe. And so, with that, for my master's, I wrote a biography on the late Dr. Bernard Bunny Fontana, who was an anthropologist, and he spent his life's work writing about the Tohono O'odham Nation and also the San Xavier District mission, which sits within my community. And he was a neighbor. He lived 5 houses north of where my grandma's house, which is now my mom's house, and my auntie, my uncle, my sister, all of us kind of live in this kind of neighbors, this whole little area together. And so and so I always was really curious about him, and I wrote a biography. And then after that, and it got a lot of good attention from friends and family within my community. And, some people saw him as a community member because he lived right off of our reservation. And, and he had some really, I would say, good best friends, just neighbors, and everybody really liked him. And so, I also did that because my mom and my mom's older sister, my Auntie Julie, they really, had fond memories of him, and he'd give them rides to the University of Arizona when they were going to school, and he was a professor there. So, it was just kind of a nice way to, like I said, honor him. Mm-hmm. So, but then having that, because he provided so many resources, and he had this really deep appreciation for O'odham and wanting to help and, share his knowledge and provide, what he could. And so there's these really great foundational documents that really have helped me as an O'odham scholar and, to have something to, work off of, right? When you're doing research and wanting to see what's out there, that predates when you were born, and, be able to just get a glimpse into, what life was like, And so with that, it led me into what my dissertation research topic is. And the title of my dissertation paper is The History of Land and Water in San Xavier. And so a lot of it started within my master's and just what Bunny had written. And, again, it was just kind of at the time I was writing more about his life, right? And why, he chose to live, right off of the boundaries of my community, I just wanted to know about him. And so whenever I would find something that he did, whether it was like a report or, anything, I just kind of was like, oh, I'm going to come back to this. And so when I was in my doctoral program, I started to then try to figure out, like, what should I write about? What should my topics be? So I talked to my mom, and I talked to my Auntie Julie, and she was the one that really told me that I should put, essentially a resource, create a resource that talks about the history, because so many people don't know our history. And where I come from in San Xavier, our history and what has transpired within my community is a bit different than the other 3 parcels that make up the Tohono O'odham Nation. And it's because we have the Santa Cruz River that flowed, for so, many years. And we were able to keep that water flow, alive until, we had outside entities that started to move in and pump the water, and they didn't have the same mindset as us, as, we just take what we need, and they took it all. And, that ranged from farmers, and, the city of Tucson was involved with, doing that as the population grew. And so, also too, having Jesuit priest, Father Eusebio Kino, come through and build, the mission. And so again, it's just our history and encounters and, just what has transpired over time is a bit different. And that also includes having my community be part of the Dawes Act and having allottees, or, also referred to as landowners. And we were never put here to be owners of the land. We're here to be caretakers. So, throwing that, into the mix here. And so when my auntie was talking to me, and she was like, in terms of history, she said that a lot of people, that then become allottees or landowners, they don't understand the importance of it. They don't understand how we became to be allottees and what that means and what that entails. And, and it was true. We really didn't have anything written down. You had to go talk to different people. My auntie was one of those people, that is a knowledge keeper. And so she, a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, your auntie's the one that I always go and talk to, or have questions when it comes to land and water rights. And, but for her, she realized she's not going to live forever, and she wanted to pass this knowledge on. And so I stepped up and I said, I will gladly accept, because I'm a future allottee. I need to know this. And again, it was like going back to with Kitt Peak of, how many others don't know the history of Kitt Peak, or don't, know what's going up at the mountain every day, as we say, you know what I mean? And so then that was kind of also for me too. I was thinking about with this topic, I was just like, I wonder how many other people kind of know things, because I did, because I asked questions growing up, but, don't know the full history, and don't know, the importance of being a landowner. And, they have questions, but they've never known where to go or turn to. And so I said, okay, I'll gladly, accept the duties of learning. And then also too, a big part of what I wanted to do was to stay true to our traditions, because we're an oral society. And I was going to do something that is not within our traditions, which is to write something down, right? And so I wanted to be mindful of that, and I wanted to get permission of, is this okay to do? Because I saw that, we've lost so many elders over the years, and whether they were able to pass the knowledge on or in a lot of cases they weren't. So that knowledge is gone. And by having my dissertation research be on this topic and the way I wanted to structure it, we were able to preserve. And I did audio interviews, so I recorded, but then also I had it transcribed. And I really wanted my dissertation to be able to let people hear from these individuals that lived these events, because a lot of them happened before I was born. And, I wanted, again, for people who are reading my dissertation to hear directly from these people. And I'm just there guiding it all, and I'm adding, information throughout. But that also stems back from me being a journalist and, letting you hear from, different people. And I wrote it that way, and I, of course, filled in and, did my part as a scholar and a researcher and everything. But it was really to have their voices be heard, and especially since having this oral part to it and being able to record audio, I again talked about, people passing away. I had 2 of the people I interviewed pass away before I finished writing. So, that just lent, it kind of really leaned on what I was talking about, and, kind of open people's eyes of like, hey, you know what, this is really important. Like we, really need to think about writing more things down, right?
Yeah.
Or recording it in some way. And kind of like I was starting to say, kind of like lent, attention to that. And people then were like more on board, not to say anybody was against me writing my dissertation on this, but, I mean, there was certainly hesitation on my part too, but it all came together and I learned so much. And I was able to interview 15 people, and, I did tons and tons of research and dived into, the tons of rabbit holes. And, and I kept out a couple of times my dissertation chair. He's an amazing person. He kept saying, okay, that's great, but you got to come back. That's for a later project. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. But, again, I wrote, something that is a resource, and it's a living document. And it's, I really look at it as my life's work. And, I graduated, I'm a year out now, graduated in 2023, but it's been really awesome to just see it all come together and to go through the experience and learn so much from my own family and others, that are community members, and or relatives, and, just even some of them, I'm like, I didn't know you were a part of that, and then they laugh at me. They're like, yeah, this and that. And so it was really great to have that. And I think, what I put together, I've really gotten really good feedback from people. And, because how can you talk about the present and plan for the future if you don't know the history? Yeah. And so I really wanted to be able to give that history and give people a starting point so they have that understanding, so then they can move into these other parts. And, at the San Xavier Cooperative Farm, which I'm very proud of the farm and, the amazing work that the individuals that work there are doing. And so, they had shared at one of their meetings that, they were really happy with having a copy and being able to read. And I did a presentation for them too, because, everybody had a better understanding. And that just made me happy, because I'm like, that's what I want. I want people to know and, and put my dissertation paper on their shelf and always know they can reach to it for, a reference or, and to share it with others and just have this really clear understanding of what transpired for us, and how we lost our water, but then, we stood up and we fought to get it back. And, just again, what really took place over time and, thinking about the future, because in Arizona, we're talking about climate change on a daily basis. We're talking about environmental issues. We're talking about drought, all of these different things. And so, again, it's been great because I really set up my last chapter of that of like, well, this is what's been in conversation, this is what I've been reading, and these are really great, jumping off points. And so I've been, since I graduated and finished my paper, being part of climate change workshop in my community, being able to attend, a community planning meeting, working on some grants right now to be able to, again, continue these conversations and help in any way. So, we stay informed and we're educating each other and sharing like our expertise in our different fields and, and just, again, moving forward and being, within the community, again, coming together in different ways. And yeah, I think the biggest thing is just staying informed. And so, it was an experience, but, I'm continuing on and, next steps, definitely wanting to do publications. We've talked about, we meaning like my family and some of the different organizations I worked closely with during my dissertation about publishing my dissertation into a book. And so we'll see where things go. But, I've been able to go all over Arizona and present about my dissertation topic and, just really inform people. Like I said, inform people, but also make sure my community is informed and, making sure that they have the resources and, we continue talking and having conversations about these very important issues that we're facing, in Arizona. And, again, also our youth, it's so important for them to know these things and be part of these conversations. So it's been great to see those coming to our meetings and, even my nieces, having them come to and being part of everything because they are our future leaders, and so and for me, it's like stepping into like kind of this next stage of my life too, where I'm like, I'm not this little like high school, like, I'm like, I'm auntie, like I'm now like stepping up and, being in these roles. And I'm just like, the adulting and everything. And I'm like, and I'm a mom now and, all these things. And so, it's like all these things that were told to us. And so some of my other friends I'm like, we're it now, like we're doing these things. And, they're like, I know. And I'm like, it's kind of scary, but, we knew this day was going to come. And so then now, we're talking to the younger generations and saying, hey, you're going to be up here in our positions too, and, we want you to have, that confidence and, be passionate and, carry on. And so I think that's another big thing for my research was, being able to, yes, provide, but also to have the youth also know like, hey, you know what, this is what happened. And, and when you become a tribal leader, this is something that you can refer to, or, you'll know you can come to me to ask questions, and whenever you need help. And so, yeah, it's just all these different moving parts. But again, like I was saying earlier, everything is just really interwoven, intertwined. And, it's just, again, being a resource, being helpful in any way that I can is really what I've always wanted to do and will continue to want to do. And that's in a nutshell of how everything came to be. And, and it was, of course, for my research and academic wise, but also like personally, I learned so much. And, because I need to know these things, especially when it's my time to step into being an Alati or landowner and, be concerned with these different issues and going to meetings and, being able to vote and make decisions on, again, different things that are relating to our land and water rights.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so excited you sent me your dissertation. So we will, as long as everything goes right with uploading it, there's no issues. That should be in the show notes. So look for that in the show notes. There also will be some other really great links, including a couple of videos from Arizona Humanities of you talking about some different topics. So everyone definitely check all of those out. The show notes will be a wealth of resources. And I just wanted to say thank you again so much for coming on and talking to everyone today. And, be still my Tucson heart. It was just so great to learn from you and hear more about this important work that you're doing. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Heritage Voices podcast. You can find show notes at www.archaeologypodcastnetwork.com/Heritage Voices. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or the Google Play Music Store. Also, please share with your friends or write us a review. Sharing and reviewing helps more people find the show and gets the perspectives of Heritage Voices' amazing guests out there into the world. Don't we just need more of that in anthropology and land management? If you have any more questions, comments, or show suggestions, please reach out to me at jessica@livingheritageanthropology.org. If you'd like to volunteer to be on the show as a guest or even a co-host, reach out to me as well, jessica@livingheritageanthropology.org. You can also follow more of what I'm doing on Facebook at Living Heritage Anthropology and the nonprofit Living Heritage Research Council, or on Twitter at Living Heritage A. As always, huge thank you to Lyle Belenkwa and Jason Nez for their collaboration on our incredible logo.
This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV traveling the United States, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, DigTech LLC, Culturo Media, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Rachel Roden.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.